The current worries that I have are there are going to be disinformation problems or economic shocks or at a level far beyond. And that doesn't require super intelligence. That doesn't require a super deep alignment problem in the machine waking up and trying to deceive us. And I don't think that gets enough attention. And that's a real danger.
My name is Tiago. I am head of product at Tools for Humanity. So Tools for Humanity was started about 4 years ago by Sam Altman and Alex Blania with the very basic goal of just making sure humans can thrive in the age of AI. So Tools for Humanity has raised over $250 million. The first major project that we built for that was a Worldcoin project. And alongside that, we had to build different parts, things like World ID and World App, and obviously the orb, which we'll talk about today. So Worldcoin started about 4 years ago when Sam, who's also the co-founder of OpenAI, realized that advanced artificial intelligence was coming. And it was not just coming, it was coming a lot faster than a lot of us expected. Basically, when you go on Twitter and you see 20,000 Twitter accounts saying something about a topic, how do you know if those are 20,000 real people that are giving their opinions, or just one guy in a basement with 20,000 bots that is trying to shape some narrative, right? And so generally we're seeing across the internet, whether it is social media, financial services, there is just a need to know what is a person and what isn't. And this is getting just harder to do with new advanced AI systems. And it turns out this is a really difficult problem. Then you can get a bit more complex and say, okay, let's verify official documents, right? Like a passport or a driver's license. But there's a couple of challenges with that. It's not super secure. Today, you can just go on Google, print out a fake ID, and you can actually get through most of these document verification systems. And so it's very, very difficult to make them secure. And as AI progresses with deep fakes, that's just going to get even harder. Even if you could do all of that, today, more than half of the world's population doesn't have an ID that you can verify digitally. And so what that means is if you want to build a system that is global, you would already be excluding more than half of the adults in the world. And so then the last bucket of things that you arrive to is biometrics, right? When you think about it, biometrics is just fundamentally what makes us different as each person. This is why companies like Apple have done it for a long time in their products and services. This is why for even longer governments, that's what they've used to distinguish people. And that is just also the fundamental answer that we got to. If you're able to verify biometrics in a way that is private, in a way that is secure, they are the best answer to being able to distinguish unique humans. So this is the orb. The orb is basically a machine that is in charge of making sure that you're a unique person. And so it does three things. First of all, it looks at your face, makes sure that you're not a picture, that you're not a little chihuahua, that you're not trying to cheat with like prosthetics. Then it generates what is called an iris code, which is very similar to the new identity system that Apple is building onto their VR headsets, where it basically generates a code that represents the randomness of your iris. And by default, that's the only data that needs to leave the device. And we use that to make sure that you only verify one World ID. For anyone that wants a deep dive, actually the orb is open source. And so you can go on GitHub and just look at the schematics and see everything that's going on. And so there's a couple of different parts here. First of all, there is the face, right? The face has a bunch of sensors, and that is what is doing the verification, very similar to the sensor that your iPhone has on the front of it. Then it has one main lens, but like a tiny one, and that's actually a custom lens that we designed and got manufactured. And the cool thing about that lens uses something that's called liquid focus. So there's a membrane that expands and contracts, and so there's incredible precision. It's really fast to verify with the orb. This is about the fifth generation of the orb, and we just iterated it by going around the world and learning a lot about it, right? And so the very first generations, for example, they used to spit out an actual physical coin, right? And so you would do your verification, and then here on the front, a little coin would come out that had a QR code, and that was how you would sign up to the system. But it turns out that when you're trying to build something for 8 billion people, building 8 billion little aluminum coins is not super environmentally friendly, it's not super cheap, and people really didn't care about their coins. And so then we got rid of that. And nowadays the orb is a lot smarter. It only has one camera, which can just like find your face so that you can position it super easy, and it can do your verification a lot faster. I think that one of the biggest misconceptions is precisely this, the fact that it's not just private, but that it is one of the most private things that we've ever used, right? It's super counterintuitive, right? When you hear you're going to do a biometric verification to be able to get an ID that then you can use in websites, what you think is, oh wow, all of those websites are going to get my biometrics, right? Do I want to do that? But actually the way the system is engineered, that is just mathematically impossible, right? And there's a couple of layers of protection. The first one is the orb actually runs 8 different AI systems, 8 different neural networks on device that do all of these checks to make sure that you're a real person, that is alive, that is unique. And by default, only one thing that is called the iris code is what needs to leave. Everything else just gets deleted on the device. So there's not even data. And so that is super counterintuitive. And when people understand it, they're really excited by it. But obviously, sometimes you actually have to go on and explain that.
World ID 2.0 introduces apps, a new way to use integrations to verify your accounts online using World ID.
And so what I would say about Worldcoin is it uses blockchains and crypto technology because it is the only way to build something like Worldcoin. I think it's very similar to the internet in the early 2000s. Obviously, most of the startups back then died, but there was a few startups like Google, for example, that turned out to be incredibly important for the world because they were actually using that technology in a way that made sense. So what crypto gives us is three really important properties. The ability to give people ownership on the network. The only way to do that today, especially internationally, is through crypto tokens. The second thing is just making this an open ecosystem that anyone can connect to and anyone can use without our permission, right? It's sort of like the internet. Anyone can publish a website. So just being able to make this open without having to go through any intermediaries is super important. And then the last thing is just everything privacy related. The only way to not just make it private, but prove to the world that it is in fact private and what we're saying happens is what happens, is again through blockchain networks. At the end of the day, the answer is decentralization, right? We need to get to a point where it's not about whether we are evil or not, but it just should be, we cannot be evil. And so that starts with open sourcing as many things as we can. That starts with doing audits and having different people and government agencies look into what is happening. But at the end of the day, is we just should not have the capacity to be evil. And so that is generally how we approach these things. So first of all, I think people should be incredibly excited that we get to live in this time. In terms of how to prepare, honestly, just like lean into these things. I really like to see the system just like calculators, right? Like back in the day, we used to have rooms of people that were doing math, and that was actually how we were doing things, right? And then eventually we had a little pocket calculator where you can do like 5 + 5, and now that's just in our phones. And to think that we used to have rooms of people whose job was to add numbers and multiply them, that's crazy, right? We will very soon realize that it'll be even harder than it has been historically to deal with bots and to do so in a privacy preserving way. There is a lot of impulses to then start collecting a bunch of user data to try to make sure that there are people, and there's just a better way. Now, in terms of how they integrate AI systems into their products and services, I think just like any other product, any other technology, it comes down to you need to try it, right? You cannot just slap a technology on top of a product and it will work. It has to make sense. I'm personally a really big fan of the co-pilot model of you keep your app the same way that it is, and then you have an assistant that is helping you with those tasks along the way. And so I think that for the next few years, we'll see a bunch of apps that are co-pilots or assistants in your life for different things, right? And so you will be writing a document and there will be a little assistant that is helping you write that document. And you'll be editing a picture or doing a design and there will be a little assistant that will help you with those things. And so as a developer, just thinking about what are real problems that the world has today, real apps that we already use, and which of those can be enhanced by having systems where you could automate things, I think a lot of powerful insights will come from that. Historically, we think a lot about education in terms of what will prepare me to get a job, right? A good job when I grow up. And that notion will go away. We will work not on what gives us money, but in what we like, what we get purpose from, how we feel we want to contribute to society, right? And now that might be art, it might be science, it might be a bunch of different things. Choosing how to approach education will be a lot less about what will let me have a good job, but how do I get to do the type of things that I'm excited about doing in the future. We will definitely, within a few decades, be in that point in time.